Spring Training Today is brought to you by Waste Management's Bagster, dumpster in a bag.
Hello everybody and welcome to Spring Training Today on Boston.com. I'm Chris Gasper. Well, the Red Sox continue to prepare for game action this weekend down here in Fort Myers. A couple of news and notes for today. Adrian Gonzalez hit off the tee again. He took about 30 swings, according to manager Terry Francona, and the team's leaving it up to him as to whether he'll do that again tomorrow or take a day off. Francona also revealed who would be the starting pitcher for the first real game that the Red Sox play. Obviously, they're going to have the exhibition contest against the local colleges, Boston College and Northeastern, on Saturday, but then they'll face big league caliber competition on Sunday. Getting the start will be Josh Beckett, and he will be followed by Clay Buchholz. Francona also opened up a little bit about his relationship with general manager Theo Epstein. It's been a very, very successful union the first 7 seasons these two guys have been together in Boston. A .654 and .480 record. That's a .577 winning percentage. They've gone to the playoffs every season but 2. And Francona said that having a relationship like the one he has with Epstein is absolutely imperative to be successful in a market like Boston.
We're going on our 8th year now in a really crazy place, and if you didn't have an extremely strong relationship, you'd have no chance in this market. There's a lot of trust. I know, and we have our moments, which I think you're supposed to. You know, I don't think he would want to have somebody be the manager of his team and not have a strong opinion. And I value his opinion a lot. He knows that. And I also know when the chips are down in the really tough times, I know where I can turn, and he knows that. It's good, solid. Being a manager, you're worried about today. When being the general manager, I think you got to be a little bit more of a caretaker of the organization. So I think I've learned to respect that a little bit more. Opening day is not the end of the world.
Back here with Pete Abraham of the Boston Globe. And Pete, we all know that players ultimately are the ones that win games, but the relationship between Theo Epstein and Terry Francona obviously has been very successful. How does it compare to relationships between general managers and managers around the rest of baseball?
Well, I think the first thing, Chris, is that it's a long-term relationship. There aren't too many teams that have had the same general manager and the same manager as long as the Red Sox have. There are some long-standing partnerships in baseball when you look at Dave Dombrowski and Jim Leyland in Detroit, you know, and some other places. But yeah, the Red Sox really do have a successful partnership, and it was interesting to hear Tito kind of open up about that today. You know, he doesn't talk about those kind of things during the regular season as much, and obviously it means a lot to him. And I think what's interesting about it is Tito is an old school baseball guy. You know, his father was a player, he was a player, and Theo is a new school kind of baseball guy with, you know, the way he goes about it, analyzing the situation. And it's interesting to see an old school guy and a new school guy kind of, you know, work together as well as they do, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they do work very well together. I thought it was also interesting when Terry Francona mentioned, you know, he kind of learned to look at things a little bit through Theo Epstein's eyes, which is the long-term view of the team. As the manager, usually you're just concerned, hey, I need to win to keep my job. I think they've rubbed off on each other, which is really interesting.
Well, I think part of that too is that Tito knows he has long-term security. You know, he's not going anywhere as the manager of the Red Sox, and this has become something where he can look and say, you know, I realize this guy's going to be an important player for us 3 years from now or 2 years from now, and not worry about, you know, Tuesday's game against the Yankees as much. And I think, you know, and I think it's rubbed off the other way too. I think Theo has kind of learned a lot from Tito too, and those guys kind of work well together. I think it's funny when he first started as manager, you never heard him talk about OBP and things like that, and now you hear him say, well, the first thing you got to look at is OBP. You know, it's kind of funny. And but you know, it's good though. I think it's good to see the way those two guys have influenced each other, and obviously it's been hugely successful for the Red Sox.
Another thing, you know, you talked about it. There's some relationships, you talked about ones that work long term, but I think you've also covered or been around some ones that didn't work, where people had to choose sides. How bad is that in a big market?
Yeah, when I first covered the Mets, Bobby Valentine and Steve Phillips did not get along, and went, you know, would go days without speaking to each other.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and what happened at the end? You know, they both got fired, and the Mets had to start over again. And yeah, especially in a big market where there's so many people paying attention and there's so many people in the media, it can really be a toxic situation. But in Boston, they've kind of figured it out.
Pete, they have figured it out. And what you should have figured out by now is that for all the latest news and notes on the Boston Red Sox, you want to keep it right here on Boston.com.